Boyfriend let my stalker ex into our apartment to arrange a bizarre birthday surprise, dismissing my fears and boundaries completely. I, 28F, broke up with my ex, 28 male, 10 months ago, but he will not get over it. Despite me wishing to no longer interact with my ex, as well me as dating someone new, Cole, 29 male, my ex has been trying to win me back by doing over-the-top things like sending me gift baskets, love letters, chocolates, etc. even though I've blocked his number on all social media and always ignore his attempts to woo me with his gifts. He never actually interacts with me directly. Never waits for me outside or tries to talk to me, he just leaves me gifts at our doorstep and runs away. It's creepy and makes me super uncomfortable. Cole, who I live with, doesn't actually see an issue with this and says he feels bad for my ex and doesn't want me to waste my ex's money/efforts, so I reluctantly just let Cole eat the chocolates and other crap since he insists I don't throw them out. He even likes reading the love letters even though I tell him I don't want to. I don't understand why he's so chill about this because my ex and Cole aren't even friends and have never interacted, so it makes no sense why he's so okay with my ex doing these dumb gestures that he knows make me uncomfortable and creeped out. If anything, Cole should be pissed off that someone is trying to steal his girlfriend, right? Anyway, all of this finally came to a head on my birthday. After work, I came home to our apartment decorated in balloons, chocolates, and flowers. I'm immediately touched, thinking all of this was a surprise from Cole. Nope. Apparently, my ex actually came over with all this crap, buzzed our apartment doorbell, Cole let him in, and allowed my ex to decorate our apartment and leave gifts for me. Then my ex left before I could get home. Cole apparently saw no issue with this. He literally let my ex into our apartment like it was no big deal because my ex came all the way with all these gifts, which was such a thoughtful gesture. Now I feel totally unsafe. What if my ex secretly left a hidden camera or something? I have no idea why Cole is so fine with all of this. I've talked to him over and over and he won't understand why I would want to reject free stuff from someone who cares about me. I love Cole, but the fact that he actually let my ex into our apartment was a huge breach of my trust and I have no clue how to deal with this. Is this relationship just unsalvageable, or is there a way I can get it through Cole's head that none of this is okay? Could Cole have ulterior motives by letting my ex do all of these things? Any advice is welcome. I just have no clue how to handle this absurd situation. Update 1. I can't even put into words how insane this situation has gotten. When I got back home on Friday, I tried to come up with a good plan to keep myself safe while I confronted Cole in case he were to do something scary. A lot of people put the fear of God into me in the comments of my last post. I invited my very tall and intimidating younger brother over to be there while I talked to Cole. My brother couldn't come over until Sunday, so I spent a day and a half awkwardly trying to pretend everything was fine, but I must have done a shit job because Cole kept asking me what was wrong and love bombing me. Eventually Sunday came around. My brother showed up and we grilled Cole about why the hell he's been so fine with my ex coming around with gifts and even letting him in to decorate our apartment for my birthday. I was not ready. All of you had a lot of theories, one of which came up a lot was that the two knew each other and or were working together to do this. If anything, I would have rather that been the case because the truth is so much more fucked up. Basically, Cole has been fixated on my ex. He has essentially been stalking my stalker. Cole admitted that he made fake social media accounts, yes, multiple, to follow my ex, and has been stalking his Instagram and Facebook. Apparently, my ex has been making a lot of vent posts about me and how hurt he is that I'm not returning his feelings and have moved on so fast, and Cole has been egging him on his alt accounts to get my ex to keep trying. The reason my ex is still stalking me is because Cole has been literally telling him to on his fucking alt accounts. It's obvious my ex is unstable if he's listening to random strangers telling to keep trying, and Cole is taking advantage of his instability by planting thoughts into his head. If I am to believe Cole's words, my ex has no idea that it's Cole that's been encouraging him to keep pursuing me, but I can't be certain about anything this guy says at this point. So why, you ask, was Cole doing all of this? That is exactly what my brother and I asked. This was his answer: to give my ex false hope. Basically to bully him. Anytime my ex posted on his social media about me, Cole got some sick satisfaction out of watching his misery. He wanted to string my ex along to keep trying to win my heart just to watch him fail over and over. Cole finds it hilarious that my ex is wasting so much money on gifts for me and that it's him who eats the chocolates and reads the desperate love letters my ex sends to me while I act like my ex's gifts are radioactive and avoid them. This has all been some sick game to see how long he can get my ex to keep pining for me. Who the hell even does this? I've been living in fear for months because Cole thinks it's funny to manipulate my ex and watch him be heartbroken. I cannot articulate how sick all of this is. How is this funny? What is wrong with him? He said he makes sure not to go too far by discouraging my ex to make direct contact with me, but I can't believe anything anymore. I've read so many stories of people who were dating someone who seemed so sweet initially but turned out to be actually unhinged, but I naively never thought that could be me. I was so careless and dumb because I clung to someone who finally treated me with kindness, but he is a twisted man who turned my ex into a monster by feeding his delusions. I think if he hadn't done all this, my ex probably wouldn't still be stalking me in the first place. My constant fear and discomfort have just been an unfortunate byproduct of his little game of puppetry. I can't even comprehend how someone could do something like this. I'm so shaken up I feel like I'm spiraling. Suffice to say I'm living with my brother and his GF while my ex gets the hell out. I told him he needs to move out within the week or I'm getting the cops involved. He didn't make a fuss or anything, surprisingly. He just looked at the floor like a kicked puppy. He hasn't even tried to call or text me, but I blocked him just in case. I'm going to see if my landlord can understand my situation and let me break lease early with no extra cost, but if I can't, my brother is going to cover the extra cost in the meantime, and I'll stay with him and his GF until I can find somewhere else. My brother is seriously a godsend. I'm definitely going to go back to therapy as soon as possible because this whole situation has me unable to sleep at night, trust anyone, and I really need a better understanding of what are red flags in relationships. So many of you told me I was a pushover and you're all right. It shouldn't have taken this long for me to call this relationship with Cole off. This is so fucked up, but I'm safe for now. I don't know what I'd do without my brother and his GF. Thanks to everyone who told me to get out of this relationship because Cole was way more twisted than I ever could have thought. I don't even know if he told the whole truth, but I don't even care anymore. I'm out. Gone. Never looking back. Edit. Thank you everyone for your advice and words of encouragement. I called the non-emergency police line to file a report of all this. It wasn't super helpful other than just making a record, so I'll do a follow-up with them once I have safe access to my apartment and can collect evidence. I unblocked Cole for now to gather any text evidence as some of you suggested, but he's been pretty quiet. He sent a photo of a couple of garbage bags full of his stuff and he asked if he could have a day to say goodbye to my cat. I have her with me currently at my brother's place, no way am I letting her near him. I haven't replied yet. I turned read receipts off. Haven't contacted X1 yet, still figuring out the best way to do that. Tomorrow is a stat holiday where I live, so my brother and his GF will be home from work. We are working together to figure all this out. Definitely moving out of my current place as soon as I can. Update 2. I really thought I had reached the top of this roller coaster. Apparently there was a secret loop-de-loop waiting for me at 2:17 a.m. My phone woke me up with that horrible little chime that sounds like a cartoon drip, and for a second I thought it was just some spam notification. Nope. AirTag found moving with you. I don't know if you've ever gone from dead asleep to full body adrenaline in under a second, but it feels like grabbing a live wire. I sat up so fast I sent my cat flying off my chest and my brother practically kicked down his own bedroom door because I guess I screamed? I don't remember screaming, I just remember that phrase and my brain immediately going white hot and empty. AirTag. Moving. With me. I hit the notification and the little map showed a dotted line from my apartment to my brother's. My brother took the phone out of my shaking hands and the two of us started tearing apart everything. Bags. Shoes. Pockets. The cat carrier. Under couch cushions. We turned off all the fans and the TV and killed the lights because apparently you can make them chirp when you're close, so we were standing there in the dark, in our socks, holding our breath, waiting to hear this tiny electronic cricket. If you'd told me a week ago that the sound of a faint chirp would make me want to cry, I wouldn't have believed you. We tore the living room apart and finally realized the chirp was louder near the front door. My brother opened my trunk and I swear I could feel that stupid chirp in my molars. We found it tucked behind the carpeted panel in the trunk where the jack is, just nestled in there like a little pearl. No tape. No magnet. Someone with hands and intent and patience put it there. I think I said oh like 5 times in a row. We didn't touch it. I closed the trunk and walked back inside like I was keeping a sleeping snake in my car. Brother called the non-emergency line and they told us to bring it in if we could or to wait for a patrol. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't get keys into my own lock, which meant my brother had to do everything while I paced and my cat looked offended. The 2 officers who came were the opposite of dramatic, calm voices, nods, the kind of faces that say this is not the first time they've walked into a small apartment that smells like stress. They scanned it with their phone and got the serial number. They took photos of where we found it. They put it in a little evidence bag like it was a bug. One of them asked me if I'd gotten AirTag alerts before. No. And before I could unknowingly throw Cole under the bus or X1 under the bus or myself under a bus, she said, these have been used a lot for car thefts and for stalking. She said the word I hadn't wanted to say out loud because if I said it, it would be real. It's not that it wasn't real before, it's that something about that tiny white coin in a baggie made everything click into place like a door closing. They gave me a card and told me to update my report with the case number from that night, and that they could request owner info with a warrant. Do you have anyone in mind who would have had access to your car? Is such a simple question. I stared at the floor and said, yes. I barely slept after they left. My cat decided my collarbone was a pillow, which was the only thing that kept me from vibrating through the mattress. My brain kept trying to play whack-a-mole with possibilities. X following me home one night and sneaking into the lot. Cole out there with a flashlight while I was in the shower. The fact that I've done my keys up, glance over shoulder walk from that garage, how many nights thinking I was just being paranoid? Holiday or not, morning came and we went straight to my apartment with the officer's card, my brother, and his girlfriend. I didn't want to go without cops, but they told me if I felt unsafe, call and they'd meet me there. My heart was hammering anyway. The hallway smelled like 100 different dinners and the balloons were still drooping against my door like sad jellyfish from the party I didn't even get. I actually laughed because what else do you do when life insists on being a terrible sitcom? Cole was there. He had texted me that he'd be out that day and asked about saying bye to the cat again, which I still hadn't responded to, and I guess he took my silence as let me pack when you're not around, except surprise, I was absolutely around. He looked smaller somehow, or maybe I'm finally seeing him without all the glow I'd been projecting. He had 2 garbage bags and a laundry basket by the door. He did that half smile he does when he's trying to disarm someone, and then he looked at my brother and changed it to nothing. I told him we found an air tag in my car. He blinked like I told him it was raining. For a second, one single second, I watched him assemble potential reactions on his face like he was pulling them out of a drawer. Confusion. Concern. Hurt. He settled on concern because of course he did. That's awful, he said. That's probably your ex. I told him not to, and that's when I pulled out the officer's card and set it on the entry table, and I'm pretty sure I saw his jaw tick. They're going to get owner info, I said, and we're updating the report. So whatever story you're about to try on, maybe save it. He didn't get mad. He didn't cry. He went very quiet and then asked if he could keep packing his things. My brother followed him back and I stayed in the living room because I didn't trust myself not to throw something at his head. His laptop was still on the coffee table. I stared at it and tried to decide if I was a terrible person for wanting to open it. Then I realized it didn't matter if I was a terrible person because he'd been playing puppet master with my life like it was a hobby. I'm done being polite. I opened it. He didn't even bother logging out of the fake accounts. He had a folder on his desktop literally named assets like he was running a brand. In it were screenshots of my ex's posts, cropped, with little notes in the corners. Reply to this one from female account, empathetic and use different cadence for this persona. He had drafts. He had a notes doc titled Pitch Ideas like he was planning content, including suggest small upgrade next, flowers plus something personal and no direct messages for 3 days after big drop to raise stakes. It made me actually gag. And then there it was, a photo of a receipt. Best Buy. 4-pack of AirTags. 2 weeks ago. His name on it. I took photos of everything and sent them to myself. If it's illegal to go through all of this, I truly no longer care. Let the judge decide while I experience my very own nervous breakdown. My brother came back to the living room and I showed him the receipt photo. He said a single word that my dad would be mad he taught me when I was 12. Cole came out a minute later with a box of shoes and saw my brother holding up the laptop like we discovered the Ark of the Covenant. He didn't try to explain. He just said, "I'm sorry," and sat on the arm of the chair and put his head in his hands like the world's saddest normcore villain. I didn't accept the apology because I don't even think we're speaking the same moral language. I told him to leave the laptop, his tablet, and the Best Buy bag, which yes, existed, crumpled in the hall closet with 3 empty little plastic nests and 1 still in the box, because they were evidence. He said, "You can't take my laptop," like a reflex, which is hysterical because he took my sense of safety and apparently those are very different in his brain. I called the officer whose card I had. She told me to photograph, bag, and not boot anything else up, and that they'd send someone by to pick everything up and give me a property receipt. We sat like statues until a different pair of officers came. They did their calm, professional thing while my brother hovered like a storm cloud and Cole stared at a stain on the carpet like it held secrets. We also did a sweep of the apartment. I took photos of every room because my brain is convinced I'll need to prove the exact placement of a teaspoon eventually. My brother pulled the outlet chargers and looked for pinholes in the walls because the camera fear is now just a roommate who will not pay rent. We didn't find anything obvious. Maybe that should be comforting, but it wasn't. Every time I see a light blink on a power bar my stomach drops like I'm in an elevator. Management was in because holiday hours for emergencies, and apparently ex-boyfriend decorating with surprise trespass qualifies. I went to the office with my brother and told them I needed out. I don't think the woman at the desk is easily rattled, but her eyebrows climbed up when I told her about the air tag and the police bagging electronics. She pulled out a folder I didn't know existed, a list of complaints about someone leaving items at multiple units with dates that lined up with my cursed chocolate deliveries. She not only said I could break the lease without penalty, she offered to change the outer door code for our hallway and put a note in my file that only I was authorized for re-entry until the handoff. I wanted to hug her and then cry into her blouse. I didn't do either. I signed where she told me to sign and left with a stack of papers and a date. 2 weeks. If I'm not out in 2 weeks, the lease terminates anyway and they'll toss whatever remains. Perfect. Here's another fun surprise. I got an email from my ex. Not to my personal email. He somehow tracked down my very old email that I use for online shopping, and for some reason I still check it because I'm a hoarder of digital clutter. The subject line was "I'm sorry." The body was a wall of words that were more coherent than anything I'd ever seen from him during all of this. It was him apologizing, him saying he got a message from the police telling him to stop contacting me or coming near my property or my workplace or my family, him swearing he never used a tracker and that he would never have done that, and then, because the universe loves proof, attached were screenshots of messages from Liv and Mark and Maya and Anna that he said he now knew were fake because the police had told him there was manipulation involved. The phrasing? The punctuation habits? Cole had been writing to him as 4 different people for months. There was one that absolutely made me feel 6 degrees of brain dead. Sometimes big love requires big gestures. Keep it classy. She'll feel safe if you don't press for FaceTime. I had to walk away from the screen because I thought I was going to throw up again. I did not reply to X. I forwarded the email to the officer and to the generic police email they gave me for my case file. I also sent it to a lawyer friend of my brother's girlfriend who does family law/domestic stuff and said, "Is this useful?" She called me back an hour later even though it was a holiday and used the word goldmine, which is a gross word when applied to my life, but I appreciated the energy. She told me to come in on Tuesday to file for a protective order and to bring everything: the AirTag photos, the receipt, the screenshots, my original police report number, and a list of dates and times I could remember. Apparently judges like timelines. I am going to hand a judge a timeline that looks like red string on a corkboard, but I will do it. The rest of the day was very normal in that sitcom way where everyone pretends normal as possible while packing their life into boxes. I took my clothes. I took my grandmother's photo. I took my cat's favorite blanket and my cheap bedside lamp. I didn't take anything that made me second guess whether Cole had touched it because I can't carry that around. My brother and his girlfriend kept making me eat bites of food every hour like I was a child who had to be coerced into nutrition. I kept catching myself being weirdly sentimental about stupid things, like the mug I hate because it leaks and the plant that never grew and the tiny dent in the hallway where I dropped a pan last winter. They felt like relics of a fake life I almost lived. Grief is baffling. Cole didn't push. He signed the key handoff form with management and left his set on the kitchen counter like he was checking out of a hotel. He asked one more time if he could say goodbye to the cat when I was back with her. I said no. It wasn't even an angry no. It was a new kind of no I didn't know I had inside me. He nodded like he understood and then, because he is who he is, he ruined even that by saying, "I really thought I was protecting you." I almost laughed. Or cried. Or both, protecting me by feeding my stalker and tagging my car. Okay. Later that night, after I showered for an hour and stood under the water like I was trying to wash the last 3 days off my skin, my brother's girlfriend knocked on the bathroom door because the officer called back. They'd logged the AirTag and the electronics and were going to fast-track the request to Apple. It won't be instant, but it's happening. The officer told me to expect a call from a victim liaison tomorrow, and that they encourage me to find a new place if I can, and to make sure I tell my work. I hadn't even thought about work yet. My brain has been operating in 12-hour chunks. I sent my boss a message that I needed to take a couple days and vaguely said it was a safety thing and sent a second message to HR because that's what the police told me to do, with the case number. I live in a real city with real policies and sometimes that feels like a miracle. I kept the cat with me all night like a gremlin, to the point where she finally gave me a look that said "You're being weird," and I apologized to her out loud. I booked a therapy appointment for Wednesday. I filled out a form online for a PO. I set my phone to alert me if any unknown trackers are near me. I put my keys in the same bowl my brother always puts his keys in because my brain likes containers. Normal. Try to do normal. If it sounds like I'm weirdly calm, I'm not. Every noise sounds like someone trying a doorknob. Every time my phone buzzes I jump like I've been shocked. I keep seeing the inside of the trunk and that stupid white disc sitting there. I keep replaying Cole's face when he realized the laptop might as well be a confession, and part of me still, insanely, wants to believe there is a version of him that didn't do all of this. That's the part of me I'm putting in therapy immediately. The rest of me is focused on moving, on court paperwork, on changing my number, on making sure my cat doesn't absorb my cortisol and turn into an anxiety loaf. I don't know if X will actually stop. I know that at least there is now a piece of paper with a badge on it telling him to, and I know that a judge can make a bigger piece of paper if he doesn't. I don't know if Cole understands how utterly he has set himself on fire in my life. Maybe he'll go find a new game. Maybe he'll spiral. I have the police, my brother, his girlfriend, locks, and a bat by the door. I have a lease end date circled in red and an appointment to look at a shoebox studio in a building with a very loud dog on the first floor and an old lady who gardens on the patio like a tiny bouncer. I fell asleep on the couch at my brother's with the TV on low and woke up to my cat chasing dust motes in the strip of sun like the world hadn't turned itself inside out. For 3 seconds I forgot everything and then it came back all at once. I'm not going to be a person who floats through alarms anymore because I want to be nice. I am not nice about this. I'm done being a reasonable audience to other people's chaos. I'll update after court and when I'm officially out of that apartment. I want the day where my life is boring again so badly I can taste it. I want to buy a cheap rug at IKEA and care about the fact that it sheds, and that's the most annoying part of my week. I want my biggest argument to be with my cat over who owns the soft blanket. And I want to stop learning what else is possible when someone decides your boundaries are a game. Update 3. Court buildings all smell the same. Bleach, old coffee, paper that's been handled too much. The sign on the door said family/protection orders in a font that tried very hard to be friendly, like maybe if the letters were rounded enough you wouldn't notice you were about to empty out your insides into a stack of boxes and lines. A woman with a volunteer badge and a cardigan with sunflowers on it handed me a clipboard and I had to write my whole life in 10-point font. Describe the incidents. I didn't know if they wanted the first gift basket or the AirTag in the trunk or the way I'd started sleeping in shoes. I gave them all of it in little squares until the pen left an impression through 3 sheets. You can get a judge to read your whole world in less than 5 minutes. That's something I learned. The hearing room had one of those humming fluorescents that makes each second feel like it's been chewed. I went up when they said my name and tried to keep my voice in the relative vicinity of my mouth. The judge had the exact expression of someone sorting their mail. He looked at the photos I printed at the drugstore of the air tag, the receipt with Cole's name, the folder title on his desktop like he was running a campaign. He read the line I highlighted from one of Cole's pitch ideas and subtlety died in the room. When I said he let my ex into our apartment to decorate the corner of his, I did a very little twitch that may as well have been a scream. He asked me if I wanted the order to cover both of them. Yes. He asked for addresses for service. My hands shook so hard I almost gave him the zip code to my childhood home. I gave him what I had. He stamped something with a thud that made my heart do the same. Temporary order granted against both parties. 2 separate stacks of paper. 2 separate lives that do not get to touch mine anymore. A bailiff asked if I wanted to wait while they tried to serve in the building because sometimes people sit in the hall like a terrible surprise. I said no, and then sat in the hall anyway because my knees went on strike for a second and my brain thought the carpet pattern was a magic eye picture. A woman next to me with a baby on her lap handed me a mint without looking. For a delirious moment I wanted to put my head in her shoulder and take a nap like a toddler. I put the mint in my mouth and did not cry because apparently that's who I am now, a person who crunches a mint into dust instead. I told my work. HR put me on a couch nobody ever sits on and pushed a glass of water toward me like I was a plant that needed reviving. Security walked me to my car, which felt dramatic until I realized I loved it, loved having a giant man in a navy blazer say we'll keep an eye out like I was worth protecting. He has a daughter in college. He told me while we walked. He said this happens more than you'd think in a way that made me hate and love the world at the same time. He asked if I wanted a parking spot closer to the door. I said yes so fast I think I startled us both. Apple moved faster than I thought a monolith ever would. The detective called at lunch like she was ordering takeout. Warrant granted, info came back, surprise, the air tag in my trunk was registered to Cole's Apple ID. His email. His phone number. That was not actually a surprise, but hearing it from a person who had to clear her throat before she said it because it was so textbook, a strange satisfaction slid into my chest like a puzzle piece. They are sending it to the DA to look at charges. Unauthorized tracking device is an actual phrase in my jurisdiction with an actual penalty, and it feels weirdly comforting to know that there is a box with legal words for the thing that almost made me climb out of my skin at 2 a.m. The detective also said something that made the skin on my back go cold. We saw 2 more pings on 2 more cereals from that purchase, both last week. One was at your complex. One was at a store near Cole's place. We haven't located them yet. My brother put his hand flat between my shoulder blades like I was going to collapse forward through the phone. I asked if that meant there were 2 more air tags currently doing laps of my life. She said not necessarily. She said they could be in a drawer. They could be dead. They could be in the trash. She said the point is, the path is there. The receipt wasn't just a receipt. It was a breadcrumb trail, and we were following it backwards to the part where I still said things like maybe he didn't mean it like that. I agreed to cooperate with whatever the DA asked. I said the word yes 4 times to make sure she heard me through my own heartbeat. Cole got served that evening. The door guy at his building is apparently the kind of hero who calls the elevator back down when the sheriff is standing on the marble tile and says, "Hey, maybe don't make her walk up to 12. I didn't see it. The detective told me because she thought I'd want to know the papers were in his hand. He texted me anyway, because of course he did, and because of timing I didn't know if that technically counted as a violation yet. The whole dance of served at 5:23 p.m. versus message at 6:01. It said exactly what you think it said. Please don't do this. We can talk. I never hurt you. A paragraph about intent and how it's different than harm. A line about the cat. I didn't respond. I screenshotted and sent it to the detective and then turned my phone face down and stared at the ceiling until the popcorn texture looked like a map. My ex got served at his mother's house, which is a sentence I did not think I would ever write about my adult life. He emailed me again after, this time from an account with his full name like he was trying to be his most formal self. The email subject was understood. It was 1 paragraph. I will not contact you again. I am sorry for what I did. I wasn't well. I am getting help. It didn't unusually wring me dry the way the first one did. I forwarded it to the file and didn't open the attachment because there wasn't one. The end of something can be quiet. Maybe I get that version. I hope the police telling him knock it off lands in his bones in a way my silence never did. Moving Day was a sitcom with extra sweat. The old lady bouncer who gardens 2 floors below my new studio wears a visor and points at your arms with impunity. You don't look like you lift. Then she handed me a basil plant and a chipped teacup and said, we look out for each other in this building, like she was swearing me into a tiny country. The dog on the first floor is a tank that thinks he is a siren. He barked so hard at a pigeon that my cat did the Halloween cat arch and invented a new vowel. My new place is a shoebox with a window that eats light in the morning and a radiator that will almost certainly be a character in my life for 6 months. There's a closet that doesn't deserve the name and a ledge just wide enough for 3 books and a mug. We borrowed a friend's van and made 3 trips. On the second trip, 2 blocks from my old place, my phone did the horror chime again. Unknown accessory detected moving with you. My soul tried to leave my body through my teeth. I pulled over into a bus lane and my brother said my name in a tone that meant don't yank us into traffic. We did the breath hold listening thing again in daylight, in front of a laundromat, with my cat and her carrier judging us. Chirp. Chirp. It took 5 minutes to find it, which felt like 5 hours, and when we finally did, I burst into tears so violently people probably thought I'd lost a child. It was in a box of dishes. My brother's girlfriend had tossed one of their air tags in there so they could figure out which load still had plates in it. She'd forgotten. She burst into tears when she realized too. The three of us stood on the sidewalk laughing and crying and holding a very unhelpful air tag like a person wearing a fake mustache at a real funeral. It was almost funny if you didn't look straight at it. Trauma brain is a Rube Goldberg machine and everything is a ball rolling into everything else. I went to therapy the next day and sat on a couch that swallowed me and said, I feel like my body is a drum. My therapist is one of those women who looks like she was a camp counselor and then became a surgeon. She said, when your body has been told the world is a fire alarm, it takes a while to convince it the toast just burned. She gave me words to put around things like they were labels on jars: hypervigilance, reenactment, fawn response. She said I did not let any of this happen, that boundaries are 3 things: a limit, a consequence, and a follow-through. But you're nice, I said, like a complaint against myself. Being nice doesn't mean being formless. She wrote it on a sticky note and I put it in my wallet like it was a spell. She told me to eat something with protein every time the adrenaline crash gave me brain fog or the shakes because the body is a machine and sometimes you fix a machine with eggs. She made me practice saying no out loud until it didn't sound like an apology. I went home and said no to my cat when she tried to eat the basil and she looked personally betrayed, which felt like progress. The DA's office called me, someone whose voice could neutralize a riot just by saying okay the right way, and asked if I wanted to submit a victim impact statement. I sat at my brother's tiny kitchen table and wrote about sleeping in shoes and the sound a plastic coin makes when it's in a baggie and how I don't go to the mailbox at night anymore because my body thinks it's a tunnel. I wrote about my cat sleeping on my chest and how it was the only weight that felt good. I wrote about how trickster logic is another version of violence. I printed it and my brother said I was a writer like that was a diagnosis. I put it in a manila envelope and carried it like it was my grandmother's photo. 2 days after service, Cole tried a new door like water looking for a crack, a handwritten letter with no return address, the kind of paper that looks like you're submitting a poem for a literary magazine. You don't have to destroy me, it said, which was a wild start. It had the words mutual restraint in it like he read one paragraph of a law blog and thought it was a hack. It had a paragraph about how we built a life and a paragraph about how he knows the best times of my cat's day by heart and then a single sentence underlined twice: I'm not the monster you're telling people I am. I didn't touch it with my hands. I slid it into a gallon Ziploc and drove it to the precinct and put it on a desk like a broken bat. A very young officer with a jawline that looked like it had been sanded nodded like he was collecting a library book. We'll add it to the case file, he said. I asked if this was a violation. He looked up the time of service like he was checking a bus schedule. Yes. That word should be a balloon releasing. It felt like an anchor dropping in a storm instead. He typed and I watched my life become a series of little squares again. My landlord called to confirm the keys and the code changes had gone through and then told me something that made me stand very still. We pulled the hallway camera feeds for your floor and the stairwell for the last month, she said, like she was telling me about an HVAC guy coming on Tuesday. We have footage of your ex in the stairwell with bags 3 times, last one the day he decorated. We also have Mr. Cole letting him in 2 of those times. We're saving it in case police need it. I sat on my new floor with no rug yet and watched the dead plant on my windowsill get a sunbeam and said, thank you in a voice that you could probably break if you tapped it. Moving all the way out of a life doesn't feel like a clean line. It feels like little ghosts. 2 days in the new place, I reached for the cabinet where my old plates lived and the empty space where the old door used to be knocked me back a step. My grandmother's photo is now on the windowsill where the basil sits like a guard. The IKEA rug does in fact shed like a long-haired dog and my cat is in heaven. She pounced and buried her face in the fibers and came up looking like she'd just done a line of lint. I bought a battery-operated doorbell chime for the studio even though the building has a buzzer because the sound of a knock currently shoots my soul into orbit. I'm not apologizing for being ridiculous for a while. I am hiring a locksmith for my insistence on sleeping. The hearing for the long-term order is scheduled 2 weeks from now. The detective says they might stack the unauthorized tracking charge and a cyber harassment charge depending on what the DA thinks of the fake accounts and the documented encouragement of a third party to engage in conduct that caused fear. Charged with being an absolute creep is not a thing you can print, but I would frame it if it were. If this goes to court proper, I will stand up in a room and say things out loud that make my teeth itch and it will be worth every second. I saw my ex once more by accident, in the most boring place on earth, a grocery store. The worst part is we both saw the bananas at the same time. He froze. I froze. We were on opposite ends of an aisle with Diet Coke and paper towels like we were going to have a duel. He lifted both hands, palms out, like you do to show you're not holding anything. He stepped backwards like he was obeying an invisible rope. He left his basket on the floor with a block of cheddar in it and walked out. I stood there until the basil in my cart smelled like a forest. I don't know if he'll stick to the nothing. I know that right now he's at least trying, and that makes the road feel less like it's going to crack open under me. Cole has not walked through any doors I can see. He doesn't have any to walk through anymore if I can help it. Sometimes I imagine him standing in his kitchen brewing coffee and it makes me want to throw the mug against a wall and it makes me want to sleep for a week. I don't know which version wins on any given day. The law doesn't care which version wins, the papers are ink, and the ink is bigger than my moods. It's a relief, bizarrely, to put some of this in institutions. You get tired of being your own security guard. The woman with the visor knocked on my door yesterday with a tomato the size of my fist and said the dog's name like an introduction. He'll bark but he's a gentleman, she said, which is the kindest thing anyone has ever said about a male in my radius in months. The light hit the floor in a strip and my cat threw herself into it like it owed her something. I made pasta with the tomato and the basil and put a fork down on my one plate and ate it sitting cross-legged on the rug that turned my socks into sheep. The whole day I had wanted to peel my face off and live as a ghost, and then for 20 minutes I was just a person eating pasta and socks. I'm not naive enough to think this means the ride is over. There's a court date circled in a color that looks like a bruise and a case number that lives in my phone like a roommate. But the decibel level dropped. For the first time in weeks I fell asleep without imagining that stupid white disc in my trunk. When I woke up, it was because the dog downstairs barked at a cloud. I can live with a cloud bark. I can live with a visor in my doorway and a plant in a teacup and a judge who stamps a piece of paper so hard the desk shivers. I can live with a little boring. I'm going to court. I'm going to therapy. I'm going to buy a second plate. The next time my phone chimes I want it to be my brother sending me a photo of a roast chicken that looks like a crime scene because he still can't carve. I want it to be a delivery guy asking me which door. I want it not to be an alarm. I keep catching myself wanting to apologize to the air. I practice saying, thank you instead. Thank you to the officer who lifted the laptop like it was contaminated and treated my fear like a fact. Thank you to management who changed the code like it was a leaky pipe. Thank you to the basil for not dying on day one. Thank you to the edges of my own no. I used to be afraid to take up space in my own life. Now I am occupying it like a very small, very determined army. Waiting for the next hearing. Waiting for charges. Waiting for the day a rug shedding is the worst thing. I am closer than I was, which is something I can hold in both hands.